ESPN who tweeted out the Jalen Carter snaps, like 3 snaps that just stood out. And you're watching the game. It's just he's getting double teamed. Tennessee tried to do the same thing, and he's just breaking through. And you're like, what are you doing? What is the point of any of this? Like the trenches, and that's what people miss when they talk about Georgia. Because one of the things my brother and certain family members throw out was Stetson and Ladd McConkey, where it's like, oh, these aren't the heralded guys. Like Georgia's doing this with. They do like the walk-on. It's like, well, Stetson was a 3-star when he came back from JUCO, and he was obviously a different player. But it's also, it helps when you have an incubator around him with 5-star running backs, 4-star running backs, 5-star receivers, 4-star receivers, 5-star tight ends everywhere. And then the trenches, which is the most important part of the sport, have the Jalen Carters, the Jordan Davises of the world that just absolutely wreck things for the 3-stars of the world at TCU, where it's like they have no answer. They didn't have guys. They just don't.
But I think both points are true though. Georgia has a bunch of 5-stars that are really good players, but that should honestly scare people more than anything is that the 3-stars that Georgia gets are almost always their best players. Like you look at an Eric Stokes, you look at a Jordan Davis, like an A.D. Mitchell. Like obviously they've had, Trayvon Walkers and Nakobe Deans the Keely Ringos that have all been 5-stars and been stud players. But like they seem to hit on their 3-stars even more so than the 5-stars. And that's what's kind of just, it's scary if you're an opponent of Georgia. Like, because you look at, because that's what the kind of point I've made about Stetson. Like Stetson is great, but I mean, I struggle to even talk about Stetson because it's like I don't know what Stetson's limitations are. You know what I mean? Like he's better than Anthony Richardson and Will Levis as far as I'm concerned. And when the NFL people are like, oh, this is why. Like if I had a child ask me, well, why can't Stetson Bennett play quarterback in the NFL? I wouldn't know how to answer it. Well, he's not really tall. Like he's not really what the NFL guys want. He's not like big. It's like, well, this guy Russell Wilson's not tall. Bryce Young's not tall. Kyler Murray's not tall. I was like, well, that's true. I can't tell you exactly why he can't play in the NFL. It's like because we all decided this guy wasn't good like 4 years ago, so we're just gonna hold on to that. Like
he's also older. Like there's not a good track record for these older quarterbacks.
Fair. But he's. You look at the quarterbacks in the NFL, like Trace McSorley was getting in an NFL game like a week ago. Like Taylor Heineke's been starting for like a couple years. Like
Skylar Thompson got to start this past week.
Like Stetson Bennett is definitely a guy that's worthy of being on an NFL roster. And you look at some guys that get reps in games, like Davis Mills. Like he's not a good player. Like there's a lot of and Richard LeCounte actually said supposedly Richard LeCounte is the reason why Stetson got an offer. He told Kirby Smart that Davis Mills might be the best player, the best quarterback in the country, but Stetson Bennett is the best quarterback in 3A or whatever classification they were in because they were coming out the same year. But I don't know, like if you look at Georgia's team, I think that the 5-star narrative gets kind of overblown. Like who's the 5-star receiver on the current roster? Like I don't think there's a 5-star receiver that they've landed. Like a lot of 4-star players. Like
wait, who?
Like
for Georgia?
For Georgia, like Arian Smith,
Jack Saint's a 5-star.
I don't think either of them were 5-stars. Rosemy Jack Saint or Arian Smith, but I mean they're like top 50 players. Like they're both big time. Like A.D. Mitchell was like a 3-star. Like McConkey's
what was Pickens? 5. Pickens was 5.
Pickens was definitely a 5-star, but he also like hardly played. Stetson hardly got Pickens as a starter. And you look at the tight end room is super elite, but like Kendall Milton was an elite 5-star running back, or like borderline 4-star, 5-star, but he was. I mean, he hasn't really played like a 5-star at the college level. Like Kenny McIntosh is like a top, I think like 200 player coming out, like a solid 4-star coming. But like you're not seeing like these aren't like Najee Harris coming out of high school, like the Derrick Henrys coming out of high school. Like Georgia doesn't with Stetson Bennett as the quarterback. Like I think people just kind of expect a narrative. Like this isn't Jake Fromm out here like leaning on the run game, having two 1,000-yard rushers. And 2 of Jake Fromm's 3 seasons as a starter, he had 2 1,000-yard rushers on his team. Like Stetson never had a 1,000-yard rusher on his team. Like he had a couple guys, and I think Kenny McIntosh is that elite talent. I think he easily could if Georgia spread it around differently. But he's like 800 something yards. Like James Cook and Zamir White last year, like they're good players. Those guys aren't like superstars or anything. So I think that gets kind of overblown too. Georgia's just just very good at like every single position, and instead in that the quarterback position included. I think honestly, like the people that were outraged about this guy finishing fourth in the Heisman, if you gave him a couple, like 4 or 5 more garbage time touchdowns in the regular season, this guy probably would have won the Heisman. And then what he did in the playoff, he would have earned it. Like, he would have shown that he deserved it, honestly. Like, if you look back at, like you were kind of saying when Hendon Hooker should be a finalist, because like if you're telling the story of like the 2022 season, like what he did was so great for Tennessee and everything. Like, you're telling the story of the 2022 season. Stetson Bennett is kind of it, you know? Like, Caleb Williams, yeah, he's good. Like, put up great stats. I think he's a better player, better prospect than Stetson Bennett. But, like, this guy's 27 touchdowns, throwing 10 on the ground. Like, he's a dynamic dual threat. Like, man, it's incredible what Stetson Bennett's lasting legacy. And I'll be honest. I was on the record after the 2020 season was over. JT Daniels solidified himself as a starter. I know I had a conversation with my brother where he said, I never want to see Stetson Bennett take another meaningful snap again for Georgia. So I was a naysayer. And what he was in 2020, I think it was like 8 touchdowns, 6 picks. He was not a good player. But it's like everyone just focused, oh, he was former walk-on, wasn't good in 2020. This guy sucks. And he turned into a really good college quarterback. And I think you got to make I've been swayed. I think he is Georgia's best quarterback of all time. I think you got to put him number one. I think it's definitely a contest because he lost one game
in the last 2 years, Matt.
His supporting cast is huge, though. Like, that's a big factor of his success. And like, if Aaron Murray had that success, but had that team,
Jake Fromm this group, or a lot of those Georgia, like, I don't think they have that dog in them. They don't have. Stetson has just, when he gets hit in the face, and this is something that Eric Ainge, the one part of it that he did tap into that I think what is accurate when it comes to Stetson, he obviously framed it incorrectly, and I didn't like what he tweeted about him. But Stetson's not a punk, but he has the Baker Mayfield mental makeup, right? Yeah. Like, we can admit, like, he did the phone call thing after he ran in on Tennessee for when they were calling him. Like, he has that in him. Like, he did
the mic drop versus
right. Like, he has LSU. That in him. So let's not pretend he's not like this,
the finger guns and all.
Right.
That.
Like, he's not a good old boy where he's like, I'm just humble and happy to be here and I just love the team. It's like, no, Stetson has a little bit he's not cocky, but he's confident. Like, he is a very confident gunslinger. Like, hey man, you can't stop me. Like, I can run it in. Like, those run where he's just untouched and he's just jogging in for these touchdown runs. You're just like, it's